Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am so excited for today's episode. We are meeting with John Solleder, who is a serial entrepreneur. And if you're new to me, I just wanted to share this. And if you've been around for a while, you know the drill. Like sometimes the universe just sends you these beautiful invitations. And when you listen to your belly and you're like, yes, you just do it. So John and I are literally meeting for the first time and definitely look at his bio below and kind of get in his world. But he just has such a beautiful energy. And I'm just so excited for us to kind of dive in and explore. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, just know that like he's like adorable in his shirt and he's in his recliner, just like chilling. And it's funny because like I have a pattern behind me, which is like usually I don't have a pattern behind me. So I just think it's the theme of interconnected keeps coming in for me right now. And then before we hit record, we were talking about our kids and teaching them about money and why don't we have home economics anymore? Why don't we have shop anymore? I did shop and I loved it, even though it was terrifying, but like I needed to know these things, right? So I would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself and then some of the things that we're talking about before hitting record.
I'm a serial entrepreneur. Matter of fact, I don't know when you're going to air this, but we're on tax day here when we're recording, right? April
Yeah.
15th. Oh man, woo, stress, right? I mailed mine already. I'm done for this year. For this year, next year's coming. April 18th, 1983. I was introduced. I was in college. I was about to graduate in May of '83, which makes me like 100 years old. Not really. I'll be 64 in May. But what happened was a friend of mine who I had wrestled with in high school was a couple years older than me. He had graduated from Lehigh University. I was about to graduate from Seton Hall University. This is in New Jersey. And he came into the gym I was selling health club memberships at and working out at. And he told me about a business that I could start for $32. And good news was I was excited about starting a business. Bad news was I didn't have $32, which tells you where I was at that point in my life. But I said, Tom, I said, if I can write you a check for $32, and you would hold it a couple of days, which he was nice enough to do, I'll join your business. And I got home that night and I had, so I was working and then my schoolwork and all that. So about 10 o'clock that night, I opened up this box. And in this box was a sales manual. And I went to the sales manual and I looked at the compensation model. And I got very, very excited by about 4 a.m. I was a millionaire on paper. Now on paper
Perfect.
is a lot easier than in reality, okay? But on paper anyway, I said the math model worked. It was basically 5%. Well, 5% of $1 million is $50,000, for example, right? Do that 20 times, it's $1 million, right? So,
Yeah.
the math model worked. And it took me 6 years to actually accomplish what I thought I could do in one night, but reality versus everything else. But at the end of the day, a couple of really quick things happened, and for the sake of your listeners, I'll try to go fast on this. But May 18th of '83, I graduated college, and then President Reagan was our commencement speaker. Now,
Wow.
I was not a Reagan fan. I was born into a family that was heavily Democratic, very heavily union oriented. When the Democratic Party still stood for something, by the way, like working people, which now it stands for I don't know what. But I don't want to. This is a political show, but by the way, I'm not sure what the Republicans stand for either. Just in case, so like. I'm not sure either party. I mean, they both seem they're really good taking your tax dollars and getting them in their bank account. Not really
Exactly.
sure what they do for us, but that's another podcast. But
Yeah.
anyway, all that said, on May 18th of '83, when Reagan spoke, I said to my father, I said, I'm not even going to go. They can mail me my diploma. And my father was a union guy all the way. And he said, even though we don't like the guy, you need to go because you earned it, number one. And number two, even though we don't like him, we respect the office of the presidency. And that's a lesson that I hope everybody hears. Whoever's in,
Mhm.
love Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump, respect the office. And whoever comes in 2028, same thing. We need to respect them and support them. Doesn't mean we can't disagree with them, but we need to at least say, hey, we support our president, okay? Not all these other people around the world because they don't have our best interest at heart at all. So at the end of the day, May 18th, 1983, Reagan speaks. And he shares two stories that have stayed with me all these years later. Number one, the fact that capitalism frees people. And
Mhm.
how does it free people? Well, he used an example of the fact that the East German people wanted what the West German people already had. Simple stuff like, hey, rather than having two colors of shirts, you want a blue shirt with white in it? Great. You can get it in West Germany. You couldn't get it in East Germany at that time. As a
Wow.
simple example, right? Because the freedom of choice of products, goods, services, etc., that we take for granted here in America, that some places in the world still to this day don't possess, is what people want. Why do people still want to come to the United States, right? Even in 1983 and 2025. That was point number one. But point number two is the one that really got me. And Reagan had this ability to speak to you like you were the only person in the room. Now, there's about 4,000 people there between Secret Service, press, parents, grandparents, cousins, sisters, brothers, and students and faculty at the university that day. But I felt like Reagan was talking to me because he shared a story that in 1932, when he had graduated college, he went back to Illinois and became a lifeguard again, which he had done the previous summer. And he ran into a successful business guy. And he said, how do you become successful? The guy said, and here's key, folks, find a mentor who can teach you a business that you want to learn, that you're excited about, that you're passionate about. In Reagan's case, it was broadcasting. He became a minor league broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs organization, eventually went up to California, and the rest is history. In my case, I said, he's making a lot of sense. By the way, I went from like having my arms folded, like sitting at the edge of my chair when Reagan was talking about the first subject. By the second subject, I was ready to stand up and applaud, and I may have been the first person to do so when he was done because he hit a nerve with me about mentorship. Because I realized that for the past 30 days, I had made about $800, which in today's dollars is about 2,500. And this is in days, by the way, nobody had credit card.
Right.
So transactions were real cash or
Hmm.
check. So when you had $800 in your pocket, you had $800 in your pocket. Okay.
Yeah.
For my efforts. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm learning a business. I'm getting mentored by Tom and by his upline in that business. And fast forward about another 30 days, I wind up in Hartford, Connecticut. And I hear this guy doing this meeting, a guy named Larry Thompson, who's still a good friend of mine, still alive, 80 years old. And Larry said, for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. And what that told me was that the brand I needed to work on was not that company I was with. It was not those products. It wasn't that compensation system. It wasn't my parents. I wasn't able to change them. It wasn't my sisters. I wasn't able to change them. It wasn't my neighbors. It wasn't my girlfriend. What needed to change was John. John needed to start working on John's brand, not just John's branding, but John's brand, John's self-development. I started to need to read the books by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, for example, The Power of Positive Thinking, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, okay, and other things like that that were self-development. And I started working on me. And that's where the changes started. And that's where the success really started. Even though it took 6 years economically for the money to catch up to what I was doing, I was constantly working and studying and reading and listening to cassette tapes in those days. Today, podcasts, back then, cassette tapes. And started listening to people like Jim Rohn, for example, and Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar, and all of these great people, Mary Kay, and et cetera, et cetera. And it started to get to me. I started to learn some of the things I needed to do, not in terms of technique in my business. That could be taught to me by specific companies that I was marketing for. What I needed to continue to work on was me and to evolve as a human being. And that's what I did.
Amazing. So I'm curious because I'm sure your algorithm is like mine. I'm not sure how much you're on social media, but when you see, I mean, I think it's like 30,000 coaches are certified every month. And it's like, are you really doing the work? And are like a lot of people, they can just get amazing copy, right? And like scare people into buying. So I would just love to hear a little bit more about your perspective on that kind of stuff, because I can see it. And I think part of my mission is helping people, especially in our space, strengthen their intuition so they don't buy out of fear. Like, if I don't buy this thing from this person, I'm not going to succeed. And I totally was a victim to that myself. And I think that's why you are the brand, right? So I would love to just hear your perspective on all of that because you've seen it literally grow from basically nothing to what it is now, where our Facebook feed is just constant. The DMs are constant. People trying to sell me stuff. I'm like, you need to be buying stuff from me.
Well, and yeah, boy, it's a great question, and there's lots of different answers I could give you. But first of all, invest in yourself. Okay. Ben Franklin had a great expression. He said, empty the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will refill your purse. So what happens sometimes is we want to follow this guru or that guru, this sales guru, this life coach. And by the way, all these people are well intentioned, okay? But some of them are well intentioned in you parting with your money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, let's just face reality. At the end of the day, you're paying for something that realistically, in most cases, you could probably achieve on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. So my suggestion to people is, look, read the classics. What are the classics? The classics are Think and Grow Rich. The classics are As a Man Thinketh. The classics are the greatest salesman in the world, Og Mandino. On and on and on. Okay. I mean, read the stuff that was the foundation of everything everybody's teaching today. There's nothing new.
Right.
Okay. I mean, don't, I mean, I listen to some of these people too, and I go, well, yeah, I heard that 40 years ago. I may
Yeah.
have said that 40 years. They may have been quoting me for that matter. I don't even know in some cases, right? I mean, there's things in the network marketing space that I hear and I go, yeah, I was the guy that invented that. Okay. I
Right.
get no credit for it. So the point is work on you. Okay. And look, you can get a lot of stuff. Here's what's so great today. You can get so much stuff and information for free. Go back and watch Jim Rohn on YouTube. Okay, or Zig Ziglar, okay, or read some of the classics, okay, buy the digital version of them if you want. Listen to them while you're at the gym, listen to them while you're in the car, listen to them while you're walking your dog, okay. Listen to all of that, all right, because the information's all there. And listen to great podcasts like yours and mine. Okay, because the people who are doing things are on podcasts. Frankly, we're speaking on podcasts. I mean, you're not interviewing me because I haven't done anything in my life. You're interviewing me because I have, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, the people I interview. I interviewed, for example, a guy who was one of the guys that actually helped to create the red light industry, right?
Ooh.
Red light therapy. Okay, I
Yeah.
interviewed another guy who's an AI expert who works for big, Fortune 500 companies on how COVID changed marketing. I mean, like this information's all out there. And by the way, listen to podcasts cost you nothing but your time.
Exactly.
Okay. So find a few that you like that have some great guests, okay, and listen to them religiously. The information is out there. By the way, you're not going to get this stuff on MSNBC, CNN, or Fox.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to get that. Podcasting is the new media. A friend of mine who's a big podcaster in Las Vegas just went to the national broadcasting thing the other day. There's now 3.9 million podcasts in English and growing. Uh,
Wow.
and that number is expected to be about 40 million by 2028. So, podcasting is definitely growing. If you look at the election, Trump was on well over 100 podcasts. Kamala was on
Mhm.
four.
Yeah.
Okay.
She
So,
refused.
yeah. And so, and his son, and one of them was just some silly sex show. I mean, I'm sorry, serious people aren't voting that are listening to that nonsense. Okay.
Yeah.
But to that point, forget Trump, forget Kamala. Okay. At the end of the day, people are listening because it's normal people doing podcasts with normal people with some level of achievement in some specific area that they have an expertise, and that's who they're listening to. So this is the new media, frankly. So you and I are ahead of the curve.
I know. And I'm so grateful. What's the name of your podcast?
It's actually under my name, John_Solleder, on
Perfect.
YouTube. And Leaving Nothing to Chance was my original one. You can still get there through that for about another 6 months. But what I found was, honestly, I was spending a lot of money that I didn't need to spend. So I just said, we'll do it ourselves. So between my wife and my daughter and I, we have our little podcast, and it's growing. And we've got, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 people that listened to one show a couple weeks ago. And we've had some big shows, and then we've had some shows where it's like 200 people. There's, as you know, there's no rhyme or reason to this.
Yeah.
but it's the after effect that you're there, and we are on Rumble now. We're building that, that station as well, but we just do this for fun, but more than that, just to get good stuff out there. On Wednesdays I do a thing called Ink and Insight, once again on that same YouTube, John_Solleder YouTube, with authors. The only rule is that they have to be living. Okay, so for example, we've done three so far, and we're in the process of doing three more authors where we take their book, I read it, I make some notes, and then we do about 2 sessions with them, sometimes more, sometimes less, on their specific book, so people can hear about it. They don't want to hear it all because there's no reason for them to buy the book, obviously, right? So it gives authors another place to go to share, what they've poured their guts into and money, okay, in
Yeah.
developing a book, for example. So we're trying to help people to get information, get knowledge, to build themselves, to build their brand, to build their futures, financially, as well as through self-development.
Amazing. And so needed because it's funny, I was thinking about this last night because I know that I am going to write a book and I know it's literally any day. I'm just going to get the ping, go to this Airbnb, shut off your phone, just knock it out. Um, but there's just also like this pressure to write books, right? Like you're not a coach if you don't have a book and like all these things. And I see these people like pushing books out and it just doesn't, it feels rushed, right? It doesn't feel authentic. Again, like you are the brand, like what do you want to write about? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think it's really amazing that people have a really good quality place to go because again, I get DMs all the time. Like, do you want to write a book? We'll help you write it. And then you'll have access to da 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 da. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah. Well, I've done it 4 times. I've written three books called Moving Up. Okay, this was the third and final one in 2020. Okay, and my timing was amazing because it came out in December of 2019.
Ooh.
Okay, and then, well, I mean, my timing was amazing for another reason, right? And this one, Leave Nothing to Chance, right, which my original podcast was called, this comes out in February 2020. Now, there's a little event that happened that some of you might remember called COVID. So all of a sudden, all of my speaking gigs, I'm supposed to be in 60 cities in 5 countries over the next 6 months for my regular business, which is a lot of my audience obviously buys these books because they're about network marketing. Okay.
Hmm.
And they're in Spanish. I spent all of this money. All of a sudden, I lose my audience. So what did I do? Keyword. Two keywords in business today: pivot and
Hmm.
agility. I
I love it.
pivoted and said, okay, what do I have to do? I got to start a podcast. And I did, and that supported the books and the sales of the books and got the books out for us. And agility, you got to be agile. Okay, you got to be willing to go with the flow on things, right?
Hmm.
And so a pivot, like if you think of it in a basketball sense, right? Guys coming down the court, you got your back this way, passes you the ball, and you pivot on your leg to shoot the ball. Agility is a little bit different. Agility means that you have the ability to take the ball and move it around the court because maybe you turn around and you got a 6'10" guy in your way. You're not going to shoot the ball over him if you're 6'3". What are you going to do? You're going to move around him and be agile. Well, in business, that's what we have to do too. We've got to be agile enough to say, hey, wait a minute. COVID happened. Don't have an audience. I can cry about it or I can do something about it. Okay, pivot to podcasting, become agile with the podcast that we started out all network marketing because that's the industry that I know really well. But then I said, well, I also know the financial service industry. Let me add that in. But I also know the self-development industry. Let me add that in and start bringing in, content from people who are authority figures in all of those subjects. Why? Because my audience doesn't want to hear the same thing all the time. They want to hear a variety of different things that are all business related. At the end of the day, it's all business related, but at the end of the day, they want to hear some different variety. Okay, so that's where the agility comes in of saying, okay, let me become agile in what I do.
I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of people relate to the pivot because that's definitely been something that's been kicked into high gear since COVID for sure. So if someone's listening and they've heard of network marketing, but they don't really know what that means. Would you mind just kind of giving us like a 101?
Yeah, it's a simple concept. Okay, everything that gets sold in the world, people get paid on. In network marketing, okay, you've got manufacturers that generally are also companies, okay, and they'll have a product, okay. A lot of it is either weight loss, energy, skincare, hair care, etc. Those type of things generally, okay. There's a few exceptions to that, but generally, the manufacturer is also the company, okay. They need a way to
Mm,
sell their product. Now, a lot of these products, like the product that I market these days for 28 years, okay, came out of McGill University. It's got a story to it. The story is 50 years of science associated with it in the immune space. Okay, it's a product for the immune system. Well, if you stuck that product on the shelf at Walgreens, somebody's not going to tell the story that's going to warrant the high expense of that product because they're not going to know all the science related to it. So, in my company, we basically pay people to understand the science so that they can go out and they can share the product with people about what the product does, raises cellular glutathione, et cetera, right? So they actually know something, so that they're educated, so that when they're sitting down with somebody, okay, as a customer, they can make a strong case for that product and for that sale. Now, if they sell it to somebody who just says, "Hey, I got no interest in developing a side hustle business. All I want to do is use the product," they become a customer. And you'll make about 30% profit on that. Okay.
yeah.
In any company, I'm just using 30 is about the marker. You give or take. Some companies a little more, some a little less, but about 30%. Okay. So on a $100 sale, for example, you make 30 bucks. Okay. Now, these days you can use a variety of ways to do that I'll get into in a second. But the second thing is there's a lot of people looking for side gig money right now, right?
Hmm.
They're driving Uber on the weekend, they're doing Uber Eats, they're doing, Lyft, they're doing, all sorts of different things, which is great. Okay. But a lot of people choose network marketing or multi-level marketing, same thing. Okay, where they say, "Hey, let me use the network of people that I know, my Facebook friends, my personal friends, my high school buddies. Let me tell them about this product or service. And if they're so inclined, let them sell it too, because they need to make more money. And if you do that, then the company steps in and they pay you what's called an override." Okay.
Mm,
It's going to be about 5 to 7%, but let's just use five as an easy number, right? So you build a sales organization that does $10,000 in sales in a month. You make 5% of that, or 500 bucks. If that's 100,000, it'd be $5,000. If it's a million, well, it could be 50,000. Okay. Some people even make more than that. I mean, some very spectacular incomes in network marketing. But in theory, two things that you're doing: you're retailing product, and then you're developing other people to go out and retail product and build a sales organization. And like in my case, I like just in Mexico alone, I've got over 1 million sales reps, believe it or not, in my business, just in
amazing.
Mexico. That's not counting the other 17 countries. In Mexico, we've been extremely successful with this particular brand that we market. And I have friends in the industry that do, similar things with lots of different companies. There's lots of great companies out there. Network marketing gets beat up a little bit sometimes for good reason. There are some, like every business, there's some people that are promoters that overly promote and over exaggerate both product claims and business claims. Um, if you do choose network marketing and you want to contact me, great. We'll tell you how to do that. But if you're not interested, in our brand, find a company. Okay. Because the other thing is this: you're going to get great self-development training.
Right.
Because network marketing, one of the things every company, and I could close my eyes and walk in any company meeting here in Dallas, Texas tonight. One thing I'm going to hear is I'm going to hear some self-development, because it just comes with it. Because most people are like I was in 1983. They've never had any guidance in their business life or self-development life. They've had other things, and maybe had a formal education as I did. Maybe they don't. Maybe they come from a blue collar, working background. Maybe they, did whatever. So the network marketing industry has always been very, very focused on giving people self-development. Like I never would have heard of Jim Rohn, for example, if I had not become an Herbalife distributor in 1983. Never would have heard of the guy. What would I have missed? Some of the greatest teaching that exists, for example, and others, by Zig Ziglar. Never would have heard of him. Okay, if I hadn't gotten into that industry. So even if I got in a company and I never made a lot of money, okay, let's say I'm a school teacher or I'm a truck driver, and I'm happy. I love teaching kids. I love driving a truck, and I do this on the side. The other skill sets that you're going to get are something that's intangible financially. Okay. It's going to help you with your family. It's going to help you with your relationships. It's going to help you with your discernment. Okay. So it's worth all of that on top of whatever you make, obviously, from a compensation system with a respective company. Right. So
Yeah.
that's why I've always felt strongly about the business. And, my kids are all engaged. They're all in, the business, and people say, "Do you do it for them?" Well, my son's not even in my company. My son's actually in another company. He's actually one of the top earners, not top earners. He's one of the top retail people. Now, let me talk about that for a second. Okay. My son's 21, very bright kid, and he's great with the internet. He has built his business entirely on the internet, combination of things that he does, okay, on the internet. And you might say, well, that's interesting because I built my business the old fashioned way. I spent a lot of nights in hotel rooms and, sleeping in I slept in a lot of Holiday Inns in my life. Put it that way. My son's never been to a Holiday Inn. He doesn't want to go to one. He's built everything literally over his telephone. So there's options to do that today, okay, that didn't exist 40 years ago when I started. That if you're a young person listening to this call and you say, hey, I don't want to do what my dad or my granddad did to build a business in network marketing, there's ways for you to do that once again, using everything from, Google and TikTok and all of these different things that you can utilize, once again, within the rules of your company. Some companies allow that, some companies don't, frankly. But there's other ways as well. I mean, there's funnel systems. I mean, there's all kinds of things that if you're creative and you know what you're doing, you can build. So there's a seat at the table for you in the network marketing industry. And I would suggest to most people be part-time. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
one of those people. I'm one of those people who's made a full-time living in it, but it's designed to be a part-time business. This is one of the fallacies of network marketing. We tell everybody they're going to make these ridiculous incomes. No, you're not. Let me be honest with you. No, you're not. I've been doing this 42 years. No, you're not. There's a small percentage of people who are going to make a fabulous income, but that doesn't mean that you're not a success. If you're a school teacher, for example, and you say, "Hey, I want to make an extra couple thousand a month that I put towards my retirement account." Or my child's 529C account. I want to fund my kid's 529C for them to go to college, for example. Or hey, maybe I don't even have kids. I want that money because I want to have a long-term care policy that I want to fund for myself when I'm old. This is an insurance guy, me talking right now. But now, what about the people who actually like to have fun in life? What if you say, "Hey, I want to go to Greece every summer, and I want to walk in the ancient, Greek architecture or wherever it happens to be." I have a school teacher, for example, in Toronto that's done that with my business. 18 years in a row, he's gone to Greece during the summer, okay, to study. He just loves Greek architecture and history. As an example, whatever it is that turns you on, the bad part is it costs money to do it. So this is another way to fund those things, whatever it happens, once again, that's special to you. And you're just as successful if you're part-time and you're making yourself a few $1,000s extra per month for whatever it is, okay, as I am when this is my full-time business and legacy as an entrepreneur is the network marketing space. So don't let anybody, put in your head that if you're not making X amount per month that you're not successful. You're just as successful if you're achieving what you started your business to achieve.
Yeah. And I know like when my mom wanted a second income, she worked at Macy's and she didn't get paid very well. And she had to get all dressed up and stuff. Like literally sounds horrible to me. When instead I could sell products that I'm already passionate about and just like easily make money. And I'm so grateful you opened the door to the school teachers because I'm literally about to record a solo sode specifically talking to school teachers
Ah,
about
okay,
how they can make extra money by
great.
supporting me. So I do these dyslexia screenings and kids come in literally unable to read. Within 1 hour, they are reading fluidly and confidently. It
Wow,
sounds too good to be true, but it's not. And you can learn more about it with me. But if you can get me a contract of getting screenings with a school or even a class, you don't have to be a teacher. It could be a really passionate PTA mom. Like you get a commission of what I get in that contract. And
great.
that could be a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing something that is socially very, very needed and relevant.
Mm-hmm.
You're helping people. At the same time, you found a way to make, some money from it. Great. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is all about.
Exactly. Exactly. And my courses, guys. So don't forget to check out my courses. I do a invitation only network marketing for that too. Because
Great.
people, I can't do everything by myself. And, I want to do things like an organic way. And what better way for people that, are listening and tuning in and have taken my courses and love them? Like you deserve to get compensated for that.
And do you have an affiliate program for that? Is that what you set up?
Yeah. So I have courses on ADHD, dementia prevention, building a holistic business using hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So there's a lot of stuff there. If you haven't checked it out before, please do.
Nice. Nice, nice. Well, I probably need to take that dementia one, but we'll talk about that off camera.
It's like my baby. I love that course because it took 14 years of me sitting with clients, hearing their story, which 90% of them are told by multiple doctors that there's nothing that can be done. And that's completely untrue. So I go through all of that and the course, and it's backed by a lot of doctors that I did mentorship with, which brings us back to what you're saying at the beginning of how important mentorship is and being mentored by people that have the same passions as you, because the skills are always going to come along with that. Would you agree? Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny there's that old statement, right? When the student is ready, the teacher shows up. Well,
Yeah,
that's kind of what I've found throughout my career is that there's always an answer. There's
mm-hmm.
always either a person or a course like you're describing. There's always an answer. Bible says, seek and you shall find, right? I do believe that, especially today because there's so much availability of information. Now, sometimes you have to, file through what's real, what's not, who's real, who's not, right? But at the end of
Exactly.
the day, you're going to find stuff. And even if you find stuff that you don't necessarily agree with 100%, you're probably still going to find some level of information that you go, that's a good point, you
Yeah,
know?
I actually have one specific person who like really triggers me, but I like what she triggers in me. Like she really expands my mind and allows me to have a little less anxiety about that line of like being confident versus like, being an egotistical, like pompous ass. And she literally brings that forward and I love it. And it gets me heated in all the right situations.
Well, sometimes we need people to do challenges too. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm with you. I've got one guy that I work with that, yeah, he definitely gets under my skin sometimes. But then sometimes I step back and go, yeah, he made a great point.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people, I mean, especially me, like I trigger people all the time. It's just what I do. But there's a reason that people listen.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think we really like to be challenged and we don't give ourselves enough credit for that. I feel like there's so much talk of like people just stay in the comfort, they stay in what they know, but I'm like, no, I really feel like people do like to be challenged or they wouldn't get upset when they hear certain things. And I think politics is like a prime example, right? Like, no, like take a step back. Like, where can you be responsible for yourself? And where can you learn? That's the thing. We live in this age where we can learn all these things. And back to what you're saying earlier, grew up on cassette tapes and like the forwarding and rewinding and trying to find the right song or the right thing you wanted to hear. That in itself is like a beautiful miracle that we don't have to navigate, right? Like we have these fast forward buttons and we can just stop the video whenever we want to hear exactly what we need. And just everything, like you said, like whatever you're seeking is going to find you. And it's just a matter of what do you really need to be challenged and to feel supported that you can overcome that challenge and come out a better person.
Two points on that is one is that there's a reason why they make those little kindergarten desks so small.
Oh,
They're
wait.
supposed to grow out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, like we're supposed to grow as human beings. You're not supposed to be 18 and still sitting in the desk that's that high, right? That's one thing. But here's the other thing. What I found in my life, okay, and I'm old enough now, unfortunately, I've had a lot of life experiences and not all good, some very painful. But what I found is that my greatest growth came out of when I'm been out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
When all
Exactly.
I'm challenged, whether it's business, whether it's personally. Okay. And I've been an athlete also in my life too. So it's like, okay, if you go to the dojo, like judo was my main sport. If I go to the dojo and I work out with the same couple of guys that I can beat easily, I'm not going to get any better. I step on the mat with a guy better than me or equal to me. I may lose, okay, only because I haven't bothered to go with anybody that I can't beat. So it was like, I would go when I was competing earlier in my life, I'd go to different dojos a couple nights a week so I could fight different guys. Okay. Just for that reason. It's like you don't have to always be the champion. Sometimes you need to get your butt kicked. Okay.
Totally.
You'll learn more from that, okay, than you will, well, yeah, I went and I smoked everybody. Well, great, but you did that last night. Okay. Where's the guy that you didn't smoke? Where's the guy that you went in to throw him and you went, oh shoot, he's like a tree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how you grow in sports. I don't care what the sport is, but that's also how you grow in every other endeavor in life. If it's all easy, you don't get anywhere. I mean, Elon Musk right now is a perfect example. Elon Musk could have the easiest life in the world. Okay. Whether you agree or disagree with what he's doing or how he's doing it, right? And there's arguments on both sides of how he's doing things. But at the end of the day, do you really think he needs us?
Yeah. And same with Trump. That's back to the respect thing. It's like these people
Bobby
could literally be living on a giant private island, just drinking Mai Tais all day and
playing golf,
playing
and
golf, playing with a bunch of animals, like, but they're choosing to do something that they feel like is helpful. Whether or not it's helpful in the way we see it, it's still their
and
path.
I would include Bobby Kennedy in there. Bobby Kennedy doesn't need to work. He's a Kennedy for God's
Yeah.
sake. These
Yeah.
guys have, to your point, they can have the cushiest lives.
Hmm.
They're choosing to do something, whether you agree
Right.
or disagree. Okay, they don't need the job.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's such a beautiful message, especially back to you, like not having that initial $32 to start this business that you knew was going to help you. It's the money always comes when you're in service, like it always does.
And when you're challenged, like I said, I knew, Tom said to me, well, here's how you get to $32. You talk to at least 3 people that'll buy the product by Friday. I
Mm,
talked about 9 people, 4 people bought. I made much more than $32. I covered the $32 and I had a profit for my first day in the business. Okay. And it set off all these other course of events that have gone on throughout the last 42 years. Not always great events, by the way, sometimes negative events, but it set off a career that I've been able to help a lot of other people around the world to do better financially as a result. Okay. So was it worth the pain at times to do what I did? Yes, it was, you know. So, you don't know. Humble beginnings, $32 doesn't seem like a lot of money, and it's not, but it is when you don't have it.
exactly. And I am like just such a beautiful share. I'm really excited about that. And I think it's going to definitely be something that I know for me, but for some people listening, like that's going to be something that really sticks in their mind when they have this vision. They are invited into something, but they just need like literally a little bit of money to
That's
take
right.
that trust jump.
Well, a lot of people think too, money's a funny thing. You think you need a lot of it to start. You don't. You need to just start, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, you domino your money. Okay, what
Mm,
I mean by that is if you think of like dominoes, okay, it works the same way. You get a little bit, you put a little bit back in your business. You get a little more, you put a little bit back more in your business. And before you know it, you're spending house money. You're spending money that you're making versus money that you invested in your business. And that doesn't mean just network marketing. Any business, it's like it's that continuum. I get a little bit, let me put some back in. Okay, let me continue to fund it. And it's like dominoes. Eventually, it's like, wow, you hit one domino and they all fall over. That's kind of what happens eventually in a good business.
absolutely amazing. So if there is someone who is about to start or just started their business and like this is their passion, they've been procrastinating it for a while, and then they finally got this nudge where it's like, you have to start doing this. What's the biggest piece of advice that you would give them?
Just start.
Mm,
Just start. Okay. Do not procrastinate. I see so many people procrastinate in life. Just start. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. Okay. You don't know the door you're going to knock on, it's going to open. Okay,
mhm,
you don't know the person that behind that door that's going to say, "I want your opportunity," or "I want your product," or "I want your service," or maybe if you're in a space where you need funding, okay, for a major business, okay, you don't know. But if you don't start, you're never going to find out. So just start. The greatest journeys are started very humbly, one little step at a time, okay, and business is a day at a time, a brick at a time, a process by process event. It's not one singular thing that happens that makes all these things happen. You look at any great business, it started humbly. Okay. I was interviewing somebody about Mary Kay, for example. And Mary Kay, she started, well, the same week she started, her husband died. He was going to run the
Wow.
inside of the business. She was going to run the outside of the business. She was the sales. He was the internal guy, product and, running the financial side of the business. He passed away. And her son
Wow.
was fairly young at the time. He said, "Mom, you need to go forward." And I remember a number, $3,000 or $4,000. And he said, "I got this money, Mom. I'm going to give it to you. You need to do this." Well, today, I mean, Mary Kay is a global brand known all over the world, billions of dollars, tons of success, tons of successful people. Well, what if she said, "My husband died. I have every excuse not to start," but she went forward anyway?
That is
Yeah.
wild. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if my listeners know this, but I was like a Mary Kay addict for a very long time. Their deep plum eyeshadow was like literally my life for about 2 years. So that's really, really cool to know. And I know my mom is in Mary Kay and I would go to the meetings and did some modeling for them and stuff. And like people just like that environment was so healing for a lot of these people that looking back, knowing what I know about relationships and raising kids and all of that stuff, like I'm sure a lot of those women, like that was like literally the highlight of their life every week was going to those meetings and just like being together. And I think again, when it comes to sales, that's what it's about. It's about that community and that shared mission.
Exactly.
And I mean, one of their eyeshadows like literally changed my life. So
There you go. There you go. Once again, simple things.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, this was amazing. I'm so grateful for everything you've shared, and I'm really excited to dive into your podcast and your books. And I'm sure my peeps are excited about that too. Please let us know in the comments some of your biggest takeaways. And oh, as always, like share with a friend if you found this helpful. But John and I are sending you all so much love and gratitude. And like he said, just start. Just start. Don't procrastinate. Don't let those negative perfectionist thoughts take over. Like just start because you never know whose life you can change and it can all happen like that.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye for now, everyone.